It is still a bit cold, so I want to make a sort of cardigan, but I don't want it really long or really structured like a jacket. I want it to hug you, and I have this beautiful fabric. It's not a knit, but it's almost like a knit. It's really nice and cozy. And I want something like hugs you and cuddles you. So I have an idea in my mind. Let's see how we can accomplish it. It's going to be a round neck cardigan, hip length, and I want the sleeve to have the same length when I put my hand down. Because I want it to look like a knit, I want the least seams as possible. And that means I want to make a bad sleeve that continues to your body, and then I don't want a front and back panel because I will have to sew it all along here. So I want to make like a whole pattern that folds, and that will be my cardigan. This is something that's going on up here. With the help of our block of measurements, we're going to trace two patterns joined by the shoulders. From the shoulder, we're going to add the length of our sleeve and the contour of our wrist. Trace the sleeve, giving it a curve. Cut our piece of material, fold it and sew the sides. Hem the sleeves, front and bottom. Cut and sew the facing for the neckline and sew it together. And to trace the pattern, I'm going to use my block. If you don't have a block of measurements of your own, it's really easy to do. I made it a few months ago, and for that you will need the distance from shoulder to shoulder, from your neck to your waist. And then to know where to put the chest measurement, you're going to need the length from your chest to your waist. Chest contour that we're going to divide by 2, and the same with the waistline and your shoulder width. This is really useful to have to trace your patterns, and I've used it a lot because from this you just add darts or centimeters or take in, take out, anything. Going to join to pieces with some masking tape. So my plan basically is to do this and double my pattern, and the sleeves will come sideways. The thing is that I don't have enough paper to make both sleeves at once, so I'm going to get close to one edge, and then the other sleeve I'll trace it by folding. This is how the pattern is looking, and it's basically two patterns already joined by the shoulder and arm contour. Two measurements I do need are the length I want to give the sleeve, and for that I'm going to measure from the shoulder to where I want the sleeve to land, more or less like this one, and then the contour of my arm where the sleeve gets. In my case is 42 by 23 centimeters, which is 16.5 inches by 9 inches. And to measure where the sleeve goes, we just measure half of it to each side, and that's it. So this will be my basic sleeve, but it is really straight and structured, and I want it a bit flowier. And because of that, I want to create a bad sleeve. And for that, I'll be using my French curves for the first time. Ooh. The amount of curve you add depends on your personal taste. I'm going to give it quite a few centimeters, and then it's better to cut afterwards than to knit more and can't do anything about it, so let's do that. And for it to look the same on both sides, I'm going to now cut this pattern and fold it so I can trace it and they look alike.
Paper, scissors.
So this is my pattern. It's lacking a sleeve because of my lack of provision. I should have had more paper, but I didn't. But it doesn't really matter because I can fold it and make the other sleeve.
I forgot to say that
My block is tight and I don't want the cardigan to be tight, so I added 2 centimeters extra on each side and a centimeter more for seam allowance. So it has 3 centimeters ease. This is how it's looking. And now we can draft it on the fabric. This is how I'm going. I'm really pleased. It's such a lovely material. It's not even fraying or anything. Really nice. This is my sleeve. Now I'm going to sew the 2 sides so I can try it on. And the sleeve looks longer because I left more fabric to be able to hem it. And then the neckline and the front, I think I'm going to use facings, even though it's not fraying, so I'm thinking, should I leave it like that? But I guess not. But it's really nice material. And one thing is that I only bought a meter because when I bought it, I didn't have this pattern in mind. I was going to make 2 panels, front and back, and the sleeves and all that, so a meter is more than enough because it's a shorter cardigan. But because I decided to make like everything in a whole panel, it was a bit tight. I had to, well, I managed because it's shorter. But if you want to do something like this, it's like a star, so you have to buy a bit more fabric. So I'm going to sew this so I can try it on. I decided to zigzag stitch everything just in case. Here we are. I'm having a bit of an argument with myself because now that I see it like this, I quite like it without buttons. So I'm struggling. I think I'm going to leave it like that and then use it the rest of the winter, and if I think for next year to add buttons, it's easy enough. So I'm going to go for it and leave it as it is. The only thing to add the buttons is because it's a 1 panel thing open by the front, it has no place to make the buttonholes. So we will need a bit of an extra fabric to fold to make the buttonholes. So that's easy enough to keep a piece of material. I wouldn't throw it anyways. So what I'm going to do is to hem all around it, and the sleeves and the neckline I am going to do a facing. And because it's a whole thing that I already cut, it's going to be easy enough to make it again as a whole. I'm going to use this as a pattern and cut around it a piece of material and sew it to the neckline. Facings are these bits of fabrics that you sew right sides together so you don't have any seams, and I think it's going to look great. And to make my neck facing, I'm going to use the piece of material I already cut from the neckline. And because it's a whole panel, I'm going to do it all at once. And I'm going to cut all around it, like 6 or 7 centimeters. Then I'm going to use my pinking shears that I never use, I don't know why, and see if with this it doesn't fray and it's good to go. This facing goes facing the fabric. How funny! It goes right sides together, and then that way, when we put it inside, you can't see the seams. So I'm going to secure it with some pins and sew it together. And now I'm going to understitch it to the seam so it doesn't move. Because the facing doesn't stay still 1 second, I'm going to top stitch it, but I'm going to do it on the outer edge. So that way, on the outside, you can see like it has a sort of collar. And this is the final result. I quite like it. I've really enjoyed making the pattern. I think it was really interesting to make it all in a single sheet. And I think it's ideal for knits, stretchy materials, t-shirt. I quite like the cut, and I've enjoyed making the facing as well. The only problem with this material is that because it has this sort of feel to it, when you sew it, you lose the thread. I couldn't see it really because it's so black and the thread goes in and I couldn't see anything. I have a bit of a eyesight thing, but not as much. So anyways, it's quite nice. They also had it in pink and beige, so I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know then in the comments what you thought, and we can also make discussions. Buttons, no buttons? What are your thoughts? And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything next week. Bye!